stands out among America's great men as the leader who proved that democracy can overcome tremendous problems and still survive. That freedom and a government that protects freedom are worthy of men's faith.
This was written on Wednesday, January 1st, 2020, by Rod Blagorovich. I, like most people from my home state of Illinois, am a great admirer of Abraham Lincoln. Recently, I have wondered what would have happened had Nancy Pelosi been the Speaker of the House when Abraham Lincoln was president. Would Speaker Pelosi, House Democrats, use the same flimsy impeachment standard they are currently using to impeach Honest Abe, one of the greatest presidents in the history of our country? In 1998, I was a member of the U.S. House of Representatives during the Clinton impeachment, and in 2009 as the 40th governor of Illinois. I had the unhappy experience of being impeached and was removed from office. Nevertheless, I offer this interesting and unique perspective about impeachment as I sit here in prison. Now, if you don't remember, Rod Blagorovich was the Democratic governor of Illinois in 2009, and he was basically, they said, offering up the seat of former President Barack Obama, but at a cost. But it really all came down to just a phone call. So maybe that's why Trump took interest, because this guy was impeached over a phone call, kind of like Trump. So consider the possibilities. Now, again, this is back to Rod Blagorovich's letter, strictly his words. I'm just reading it for you to understand. So he says again, and nevertheless, I offer this interesting, unique perspective about impeachment as I sit here in prison. Now consider the possibilities. First, today's Democrats would have impeached Lincoln for obstruction of Congress and abuse of power when he unilaterally issued his Emancipation Proclamation. Lincoln didn't ask Congress for his permission when he declared an end to nearly 250 years of slavery and offered freedom to millions of slaves in the American South. He neither consulted Congress nor sought its consent before he acted. In fact, at the time of Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, the Democrats of that day opposed it. And then there's the matter of the job offer to Robert E. Lee shortly after the firing on Fort Sumter by secessionists in South Carolina. And one day after Virginia seceded from the Union, President Lincoln sent an emissary to Robert E. Lee to offer him command of the Northern armies. General Lee declined the offer. When his native state of Virginia left the Union, General Lee left with it, eventually going on to become the commanding general of the Army of the Northern Virginia and the greatest military leader of the Civil War. Can't you see how a Speaker Pelosi and many of today's House Democrats would call for the appointment of a special counsel to investigate Lincoln for the Confederate collusion and bring impeachment charge for abuse of the power for offering the top military command to a guy who would go on to become the top military commander of the other side? And surely articles of impeachment would be brought against Lincoln by today's House Democrats for suspending the writ of habeas corpus across the Union as it related to traitors, spies, prisoners of war, and Union soldiers. And then there's the political side. Would Lincoln face impeachment for some of the activities by his political aides who had helped him secure the Republican presidential nomination at their party's convention held in Chicago in 1860? Today's Democrats would have argued that the routine horse trading employed by Lincoln's political operatives at the convention was bribery, and that Lincoln should be impeached. It is commonly known among historians that in order to gain the support of the delegate-rich Pennsylvania delegation, Lincoln's aides offered a cabinet position to Simon Carman, the senator from that state. After Pennsylvania voted to nominate Lincoln, Carman was appointed Secretary of War. Undoubtedly, today's House Democrats would bring impeachment charges against Lincoln, labeling that routine political log rolling an illegal quid pro quo. Would today's House Democrats seek the impeachment of Lincoln for his campaign's use of unconventional political tactics, taking a page from the playbook that would later be associated with the old-style Chicago Democratic machine? Lincoln's campaign aides made full use of their home-field advantage by printing 5,000 counterfeit tickets to the Republican convention to pack the halls with Lincoln supporters. This tactic worked, with throngs of Lincoln supporters in the convention hall gallery cheering on their favorite son. A steamroller effect was created that led to the dark horse Lincoln winning the nomination on the third ballot. Would today's House Democrats impeach Lincoln for the alleged fraudulent practices at the convention, claiming he was an illegitimate president? 2 generations before, Abraham Lincoln led the struggle to preserve our fractured nation through the crucible of a civil war. The framers of our Constitution established the criteria to impeach a president. They rejected the weaponizing of impeachment as a political tool by expressly limiting it to treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. They did this because they foresaw how tempting the use of impeachment could be to advance partisan ends. Indeed, Alexander Hamilton warned of the great danger that the decision to impeach a president could be made for political reason, on the comparative strength of parties, rather than on the limited and expressed criteria written in the Constitution, black and white. It is hard to imagine how history would have been changed had Lincoln been impeached. Thankfully, that never happened. But to think that it could have happened is a reminder of how fragile our republic is and how vulnerable our freedoms are. No president is safe if a majority of hyper-partisan House members from the opposition party are willing to abuse the Constitution and vote to impeach. And the worst part of it is that this should happen. Those politicians are taking from the people their right to choose their own leaders through free elections. So much for a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, not perishing from this earth. Again, that was Rod Blagojevich, served as a 40th governor of Illinois' Democratic Party, 2003 through 2009. This is the Patriot Hour. God bless, Godspeed to each and every one of you.